Welcome to the Green Building Show, where we investigate green design and building trends throughout Australia.
This week I speak with environmental consultant John Caley, and he's going to explain the benefits of retrofitting the glazing throughout your house, and that double glazing can improve the thermal performance of a home by at least a third. In Australian style, I'll speak with award-winning architect Andrew Maynard, who's renovated a home in Melbourne which is both as quirky as it is functional. I'm here today with John Caley. He's a director at sustainable design consultancy Ecological Design. Thanks for being with us, John.
No worries.
So we're talking today, the issue is retrofitting your glazing throughout your home. And in some of the research I've done and some of the experts I've spoken to, they've said that glazing throughout home is a real game changer in terms of thermal performance and energy efficiency of a home. Why is that, or do you agree with that comment, and why is that?
Yeah, definitely agree. The glass is just a very thin bit of silicon. It actually conducts heat reasonably well compared to the rest of your house, especially if you put some insulation in your ceiling and your walls. Then the glass is like a big sort of conductor, letting your heat in or out of the house. So
okay.
Yeah, it can, and especially in the new houses, people are putting a lot more glazing in. It becomes the driving factor for how much heat gets in and out of your house.
Great. And how far down the pecking order is retrofitting the glazing throughout your home if you're trying to improve the thermal performance? Is it one of the first things you should do, or is it something you do after insulation, etc.? Yeah,
the latter. It's after you've insulated. Insulate your ceilings is the easiest one often, not always, but often. And then addressing drafts is probably another easy one, making sure that there's not too much infiltration of air through window seals, door seals, and probably want to talk a bit more about the window part of it. Mm-hmm. And then addressing shading sometimes is important too, so making sure that the windows aren't overshaded where you're trying to get the sun's energy in, or not shaded enough where you're getting too much heat gains. So okay. After you've done those things, then you address the glazing. Then you'd maybe looking at double glazing or something like addressing the glazing.
All right, great. And what's the ideal amount of glazing that you should have throughout your home?
There's not really an ideal amount of glazing. It really depends on other things about that.
Andrew Maynard, thank you for your time.
No problem, thank you.
But you'll see a lot of houses got a lot more glazing than that, right. And then it becomes, where do you put it? So the classic thing is put the glazing on the north side if you've got that north orientation where you can get some winter sun in, and then give it a bit of an eave so that it gets shaded in summer, and try and avoid it on the east and west, mm-hmm. Where it can't really help you, or even the south, it can't help you in winter, and you've got to shade it in summer to avoid getting the house getting too hot.
Okay, great. Okay, but in a sort of a step-by-step process, someone's decided, okay, I need to have a look at my glazing, I want to improve the thermal performance of my home.
Yeah.
What's sort of the first step for them to do to find out what characteristics in a window treatment they need, and where they can find out some information on on what sort of windows would be ideal for their climate zone?
Are you talking about someone renovating or building a new house?
Retrofitting.
Retrofitting, yeah. Okay. So they need to think about what climate they're in first. So if you're in a cold climate, I guess we start with cold climate.
Yep.
Then and looking at their existing windows, you would just visual inspection, have a look, is it single glaze, is it double glaze, has it got any tinting? And so the glass on your north side of your house, you want generally in a cold climate to be nice clear glazing that's going to let the heat in winter, with a bit of shade over it to keep it out in summer. Then you preferably want a timber frame. They let a lot less heat in than an aluminium frame, and you'd have a look at it and see if there's any seals on the sliding parts, and if it's got moving bits where the sashes meet. So you see that it's not letting too much air in. So just a visual inspection, the first thing. Right. So if you see it's kind of a rattly old sash window with single glazing, big gaps, then you know that it's going to leak a lot of air and it's only single glazing. Mm-hmm. If you see some nice sort of fabric seals are in good condition, you've got some weather stripping happening, and then you might actually see that the glass looks when you look at double glazing, kind of a bit of an edge, and you look in towards the frame, you can say, oh, that doesn't look like just one bit of glass. You can kind of see a bit of glass, and then you might be able to see a bit of the gap. It's not really easy, and the other giveaways are a lot heavier.
Right, so the three things for a cold climate, or the three key things, are correct seals, double glazing, and wooden frames.
Wooden frames are a good thing in terms of the frame themselves can conduct quite a lot of. Aluminium is a much better conductor even than glass.
Great.
So
okay.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for as kind of your ideal thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. And what about the other extreme? Let's say that's for a cold climate. What about a hot climate? Say a house in Cairns, for example.
Yeah. So if you're in a really hot climate, once again you're trying to stop heat getting conducted through the glass, but for the other reason, you just don't want all that hot air coming in. You've probably air conditioned inside, so you're trying to keep it cool inside. So again, you'd ideally go for double glazing there. The same thing about the frames and things and infiltration.
Right, so basically the same treatment for both, and for two polar or for two extreme.
Almost
climate.
the same. One thing would be different, that in the cold climate, you want to have the glass with lots of sun getting through the glass. So when it's winter time, you don't want shading, and you want the sun coming through, and as much as possible that solar energy going straight through the glass, which it will do, and into your space and warming up the furniture and the floor and the walls and that.
Yep.
So you choose a glass that's got high solar heat gain coefficient. And when you go looking at glass, you'll discover there's ratings for windows, so you can choose one which has a high SHGC, which is a solar heat gain coefficient.
Okay.
Whereas in Cairns, in the hot climate, we want to try and shade all the glazing so the sun doesn't hit it directly, but we can't always avoid that. Then if we've got glass that's exposed to the sun, we want something that's got a low solar gain. So typically it would have some tinting on the outside of the two panes of glass.
Right.
Tinting absorbs energy, so that outside pane will get hot because it's tinted.
Yep.
And then some of the heat goes outwards, and some of it goes inwards, but it comes to a cavity with another bit of glass. So then it doesn't get in. So tinting plus combined with double glazing, and especially if it's double glazing with a special treatment on the inner pane, stops heat getting in as well.
All right, cool.
It'd be terrible in a cold climate. Great for somewhere really hot.
Okay, good. Are you able to give us a bit of a percentage on how much heat loss in a cold climate, for example, how much heat loss double glazing can prevent?
Yes, so if you're comparing it to not worrying about air leakage, comparing it to single glazing, a good double glazing unit could be letting a third the amount of heat in or out compared to a single glazed unit. So it could be 3 times as good.
3 times as good, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm here today with Andrew Maynard. He's the principal of Andrew Maynard Architects based in Melbourne. Thank you for being with us, Andrew.
No problem.
Fantastic. We're talking today about the Hill House, which is an absolutely incredible looking renovation you guys did in north of Melbourne. Can you tell us what was the brief from the client, Andrew, and how did this, this unusual design come about?
The brief from the client was really they just wanted a house that would suit the long-term needs of their family, 3 young kids and the 2 parents, and they'd been living in the existing house for almost 10 years before they came to see us, and they'd learned to hate everything about it, and they wanted to know if it was actually if it could be turned into something that was appropriate for the next 30 years.
Right, but it's certainly not, an ordinary suburban house by any measure. I guess how did the unusual design come about? Did they say, get creative and go wild? Did they give you a specific brief for their needs, or?
They gave me a brief in terms of the functions, the functional brief. But no, they didn't tell me to go wild or anything like that. It really came down to what was the best approach for the site, and because the existing house was sitting to the north, well, it faces north, so therefore the backyard was constantly being shaded by the building. It meant they rarely used that backyard, and it was damp all the time. So that really led us to thinking, well, if we do extend this, we should really put it at the back boundary so that the new works are sitting out in the sun, and we, instead of having a backyard, we actually have a courtyard, a yard in the middle. And then even beyond that, I started to think, well, if this is the first time we're having any meaningful sunlight coming into the house, why don't we actually let the backyard start to aggressively take over the built form? So instead of just having a modernist box there, why don't we actually let the backyard envelop the house?
Great. And what led to the decision for a lightweight extension rather than, say, a heavyweight one?
A lot of the time it comes down to cost for a lightweight extension. That's generally how we deal with most of our projects. Even though it looks quite complex, it's actually a pretty simple structure, all timber-based, and it just seemed like the most appropriate response.
Andrew Maynard, thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.